Go wherever you want.
Hello, hi everyone. We're live on Twitter, right?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, no, I just noticed that. And this is the screen that's live, right?
Yes, yes. And here as well.
Actually, see the feedback. Awesome. Hello, hi everyone. Welcome to the Vibe Coding Workshop here in Solana. Guess let's wait for a few more minutes.
Mm-hmm.
Where do we see the chat?
Yeah, that's where I'm going. I'm trying to go back here. They will pop up here. I'll comment on them.
Okay, cool. All right, so we can get started. Can everyone hear me okay on stream?
Let me go test it.
You're in chat. Just let me know if you can't hear me. All right. So hello everyone. So I'm gonna do a short intro on myself. My name is Paul. I am a game developer. I've been making games for around 20 years. Started making games way before app stores. I was making games on these like potato mobile phones, which just had 64 kilobytes of data. And so, yeah, so I've been used to just seeing how games have changed over the years. And now that we're building games, not just on browser, on VR, right, and now on chain, um, I really was interested on the intersection of game design and technology. And so that's what led me to building games on chain, on Solana, and also on Ethereum. And today I did wanna do a vibe coding workshop, so it's gonna be kind of loose. I wanted to ask folks also what they're working on, maybe like give some advice on how to do vibe coding. But I also wanted to share this, I guess, this workshop that I've been doing, um, like all across the world, and also something I've started called NPC Friday, which is what we're doing now. Cool. So yeah, so I mentioned NPC Friday. This is like an offshoot of the workshop that I do every few during there's conferences like in East Denver, and now with Consensus as well. Um, but the idea with NPC Day is that I try to get folks who are interested in more on the ideas in building games and really be a no shield zone is the idea. So it started out as NPC Day in Denver with the folks from Future Primitive, and we've done it all across the world, in Denver, in Istanbul, in London. And the idea is to one make friends. So a lot of this has been really inspired by the accelerators that I've been part of, where I've learned a lot with folks who are, I guess, intellectually curious and want to explore with their peers, um, to share knowledge and be inspired, and of course to have fun. Like I am in games, and something that I've kind of lamented is a lot of people who have been making games for a while just don't play games anymore and don't realize that it's all about fun. So I wanted to let people still have that feeling. Okay, so how I do NPC Friday is I kind of start what's happened in games and AI and Web3 over the past few weeks, because AI moves so fast. Like every week, every day almost, something happens. And so I kind of want to contextualize everything by discussing what happened this week. So a few new things. Gemini Pro 2.5 just came out, so I've been using it to vibe code. Like it's great. It's the reason I started exploring AI was I realized that AI can do a lot of stuff much better than me, and now we can really see it do it much better. So in this example, they just put in an image, right? And it says transform this image into a code-based representation of its natural behavior. And just with that simple prompt, right, it was able to like create this code that allows you to like animate something procedurally. So if you imagine like yourself doing that, right, you have to take so many steps to kind of figure that out. But now AI can just do that in a snap. So it's super crazy. Going back. So that's Gemini 2.5, and then ChatGPT as well. I think there was an image generation upgrade. This video just came out, I think yesterday, wherein you can just take a screenshot of a napkin diagram, um, put in some palettes that you wanted to use, and then immediately it's just going to make that whole app a mock-up for you, right? So another example of just taking something and just hyper accelerating it, right? So if you want to make a website, just do this, throw that mock-up to Gemini, and it'll make it. So crazy. And yeah, and since we're doing this for Solana, and the hope was we vibe code games together on Solana. I put in some links here that I'll share with chat as well on how to make a game on Solana, because I think a lot of folks would probably know how to start doing this. So I'm not going to focus on the Solana specific stuff, but I have some links here where people can get started. One is the workshop held by Jonas, I think, which is Solana Game Dev Workshop. It goes through a lot of the tools you need to get started, like the Anchor framework, which allows you to like build on top of smart contracts. And there's some pretty cool game examples on there, like Solana 2048. Yeah, maybe you can actually demo this. Let's see if it changes. There you go. So this game is a Unity game with some Solana smart contracts underneath. So you can log in with your wallet. Hopefully my wallet's not appearing on screen. Okay, yeah, should be okay.
I can't. I know this.
Yeah.
Somehow it should also be appearing there, right? Your
Oh, this one.
no, not the wallet, but the
Oh, yeah.
presentation.
Yeah, you're right. There you go. Yeah. So yeah, so in this example, it's 2048, which is a puzzle game, and every transaction that you're doing on the game is a Solana transaction. So it's pretty impressive showcase of how you can do transactions in games very fast. I'm just sharing too many screens here, so I think it's like not updating as fast. Yeah, but I'll share the link so everyone can test it out. Okay, going back. All right, and another is a lumberjack demo, which is based on JavaScript. So one thing I did want to mention when vibe coding, the challenge with using, I guess, less code specific frameworks such as Unity is you still have to do a lot of manual stuff. So I find it best to do vibe coding actually um, on JavaScript or other frameworks where it's still a lot of code and you can really vibe with 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 the LLMs. Okay. Right. So I did want to be more interactive with the presentations, and I want to ask folks how they are using vibe coding. But maybe before I do that, I want to talk a little bit about vibe coding in general. Let me present this.
Is it possible for you to put the presentation on the TV? Because I don't think the
Oh.
people in the web will be able to see it.
Yeah, sorry about that. Let me do that.
Okay.
Can you guys see this okay? Okay, cool. So I did want to, before I kind of open up the space, I did want to talk a little bit about vibe coding and how I feel it's important to think about it. Because when you look at people talking about vibe coding, right? A lot of these are folks, I guess, who wanna get you to use the platform, and usually the examples are, I guess, the same kind of games that you see, like 2048, right? A lot of folks are already doing that, but I think the real power with vibe coding is, for one, like code is so cheap, right? Like you can really imagine whatever you want. So with that power in mind, I think it's on us to kind of think deeper and kind of rethink the paradigm of what kind of games we should be making. And I wanted to share some of the, I guess, some of the people we brought on NPC Friday and what kind of things they're working on. So let me share this. Share this again. Share this on screen. And I'm sorry that this is so slow, but I'm moving stuff all over my screen. But yeah, so NPC Friday, as I mentioned, we've been doing this for already 4 Fridays, but we've been doing NPC Day for a while. And the idea is how do we rethink the paradigm of making games, right? So the first NPC Friday, we had Niraj, who who's part of Game 7, and what he showed us was the first MCP game. And the idea here was, what kind of games can you make with MCPs? And what he did was a game called Two Truths and a Twist, which is you're just adding the MCP into your Claude code, and then it plays a game with you, which is, it'll give you three facts, and you're gonna have to guess which fact is a twist. So it's like you're choosing which one is a lie, and because it's played with an LLM, you can kind of change its parameters on the fly. So, for example, it can, what he did was, create the UI as we're making this, and also make the subject be around Minecraft. So it made like a Minecraft UI, and it started like doing this game, right? So that's kind of a good example of how code is just so cheap it can make UI on the fly, which was very interesting. The next one was, we had in Tim Cotton from Scripted. So what Scripted is working on is a project called Hollywood, and what they're making is an autonomous agents that are making films by itself. And so what people need to do is, they interact with the agent on Twitter, and the agent builds, like a 5 second cinematic frame around what they tweet the agent with. And going back, and the like a few weeks ago, we had Austin Griffith, who's working on a platform called Scaffold ETH. And what he showed us while he was making the game was he had like a real time live multiplayer framework. And then as we were like watching it through the screen, he was vibe coding the game. It was changing real time as we were playing it, and yeah, so it's impressive that you can change code on the fly. People have never been able to do that usually. So I kind of like how these folks are thinking about really using the technology and changing up game design. Right. And then lastly, we had Ronan Sanford. Ronan has been working on games like Eternal and Conquest.eth. And the idea that he focuses on is, what would it mean to create persistent on-chain autonomous worlds? So in this case, everything is on-chain. What kind of tokenomics do you need to build for people to keep playing a game? And yeah, and just thinking broadly around that, right? So one game that he's working on is a game called Eternal, wherein it's a roguelike dungeon generation game, and so all the map data is on chain, and yeah, and that's really interesting, right? So the dungeon is permanent, and it changes as people interact with the on chain data. All right, and then just going back really quickly here on the mental models, right? So that's kind of what I wanted folks to take away is, vibe coding has opened up a lot of new game design ideas that we can kind of pull on, and yeah, and it's kind of worth thinking more deeply around game design. Okay, and so I mentioned I've been making games for quite a while. I've seen games change through the years. I saw when social networks started getting into games, and I've seen how game design has changed because of that. So before, when we were making games before all these social networks, a lot of the focus was on narrative, and also on what makes games fun, right? But when social networks came around, I saw the game design language change. Instead of stories, it's all about the funnel of users, like how do you get them to monetize, the pyramid of users, like who are the most valuable users, right? Like the whales, like that term became popular in game design. And then it changed also how we looked at metrics. Like we had a metric called day one, day seven, day 30, which is how long people are playing your game. And we also heard, I guess, like like phrases that stick to game designers' minds, like game loops, right, and retention leads to monetization. So that was kind of the language in our heads. So now that we're in vibe coding, in the world of AI, where everything has changed, where attention is hyper monetized, right? What kind of games should we make? What kind of games will be successful? And yeah, and just really thinking deeply around that. And maybe I just want to end with this quote, and I'll just share all of these links to everyone, I found very, very interesting. When I think of mental models around how we should be thinking about what we're working on, poems also I feel are a very powerful mental model, and quotes, right, from people. That's why they stick in our heads. And this one I found really, really deep, which is the old world is dying and the new world struggles to be born. Now is the time of monsters. So, kind of just think of how history changes. History also is, I didn't have that phrase here, but history doesn't repeat, right? But it's it usually doesn't come back in the same way. Like I'm butchering the quote, but there's something like that, right? Um, and yeah, so vibe coding can be something like this. I don't know if you guys have seen this like meme on vibe coding around uh, just folks saying like, what is a database, what is web security, right? And just making stuff without looking deeply into it. But also, vibe coding can lead to something deeper, uh, right? So yeah, so maybe I want to open up the space. I wanted to like help people who are wanting to vibe code today. I can also share what I'm working on if that helps before I open up the space. Are there any questions from anyone?
Yeah, I have a question.
Yeah.
I am so new to this, so I don't know. Why is it different that the first project I got started while coding was a game,
Uh,
but with the models that I'm working, it doesn't go above pixelated game.
oh, oh, good question. Yeah, because 'cause I find that's been the challenge with vibe coding models also. Like, is it a browser game that you're working on?
I wanted to just
Yeah.
try to see if I can vibe code a game. I could, but like Tetris,
Yeah.
it doesn't go above that.
Because it's pretty good with code, right? But when it's making assets, usually it's not, because like LLMs don't really have good visual acuity, right? If you For now, right? I say that for now because I just shared earlier that it can. But yeah, that's kind of where it kind of fails a little bit. So I can share a little bit also of what I'm working on there. But most of the time, you would rather build tools that complement what the LLM can do. Like in our case, we're building um, some some tools to make tile sets, or some tools to turn an image to 3D. So you're not going to use the LLM that you usually use for coding for that. You're going to use a different model. So that's the reason why it's using pixels, is that's what it knows. That's what it can do well. So that's
So
why
for now, we
it
should
does that.
stick to Pixel.
Yeah, and it's fine. I think it's good to start with like a lo-fi game, and then just update that eventually. When I say lo-fi, like pixels, like even
How
ASCII
does it determine
graphics.
which language it should use to code?
Oh.
How does it determine?
Good question. Like usually, like how I think about this is when you throw a question to an LLM, there's some randomness in there. So it's going to be pretty random what it does, but it knows a little bit. So it kind of thinks of what kind of game you're trying to make, but it'll usually default to a few things because if you it also depends on your tool. If you're using Replit, if you're using Cursor, um, it will probably use Python if it's Cursor because it
But
knows
for
Python.
Next.js.
Oh, if you tell it to do it in
No,
Next.js.
I didn't even know the name of the languages. I
Uh-huh.
just said I want this. Then I asked somebody else. They told me this is Next.js.
Oh, well,
Yeah.
it'll do that also. It's random, honestly. Like when you ask an LLM a question, it starts with like a good analogy I think of is it's like it starts with noise. So it's imagine like a noisy image, and then it just tries to find the pattern. So yeah, so with your question, it does that. So is it Python? Is it JavaScript? So it's random, right? Like when you ask an LLM to make you an image, it's all random. So it's the same model, I think. Yeah.
Thank you.
But yeah, if you wanted to use a specific model,
I have to tell it.
you have to tell it. Yeah, specific language. What some people do is they define it in their cursor rules. And I can show also how I do it. Like I ask it to make it on Phaser because Phaser is a game engine that I'm used to using. So I ask it to use that.
You know what's the fact? Most people that I'm seeing, they're vibe coding. They're coders that are about vibe coding.
Yeah.
But vibe coding is opening a window for people like me that
No, for
have
sure.
never coded.
Yeah.
Code now.
Yeah, and that's what I find vibe coding should be focused on, right? Is to help people to level themselves up. Yeah. But if you're someone like me who's been making games for a while, it's super useful. I think it's like amplified how I do stuff very, very, very fast. Cool. Any other questions?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So currently I'm on a challenge to create 120 apps. This is the ninth day, and I'm vibe coding as well.
120 apps. So
Yeah.
like
So
like
I've already
120
made
apps in.
120 days.
Oh, that's cool. Yeah.
So this is my ninth day and the ninth app. One thing that I'm struggling with is these tools are really good at front end, but
Mhm.
when it comes to some backend stuff, like we want to create a Docker container,
Yeah.
right? And sometimes we want to have like the backend rendered somewhere. These tools are not too good at figuring out how the backend would work and
Yeah.
integrate them.
Mhm.
Do you have some tool that is good at these specific things like integrating Docker or integrating SQL? or
Yeah.
DB?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, good question. Like,
There's of course Cursor, but it's also like manual. It's suggesting and making those changes.
yeah,
But Lovable is really good. You don't need to do anything in terms of front end, but
Mhm.
still there's manual integration required for
Yeah.
backend.
like how complex are the backends that you're working on? Are they like
They're
for?
just like
Yeah.
sometimes they're just web-based backends. You know?
Mhm. So I guess just a database, right? Like a user database,
Yeah, yeah.
transactions, or
Yeah, and sometimes there's a Python backend as well
Mhm.
that has to like coordinate with the front end. So I'm struggling with finding tools that can help with that.
Yeah. Have you tried using Replit for the
Yeah,
backend?
I have.
How do you find it?
Yeah, Replit is really good.
Yeah.
It allows us to have SQL.
Mhm.
It allows us to integrate other libraries as well. For example, Supabase and a lot of other libraries. But when it comes to like, I want to create a Docker container.
Mm. Okay, so
Yeah.
backend as in Docker and infrastructure, right? Yeah.
For that, I think Cursor is currently the tool, right?
Hmm.
So,
I find like, yeah, for example, if you ask it to write you Docker compose to be able to deploy it immediately, like it's not that great yet. Um, like I would honestly like does Docker need to be part of the stack, or can you just make the backend and just deploy that backend instead of deploying Docker? Because
sometimes I might need to. For example, if I'm making a trading bot and there have to be multiple instances of that, right? So
yeah,
every instance is different. Sometimes I might need it for that.
yeah. Like honestly, like I was trying to use it to also make Docker Compose, as I mentioned. Like it's not that great yet. Like I would like I know this isn't the answer most people would want. Is you're probably gonna have to like do the Docker stuff yourself. Because that's one thing also with vibe coding is it's not it doesn't work like maybe 10% of the time, or maybe I'm being very generous also. Like if you're asking it to do very niche stuff, like it's not even niche, right? But some other stuff where there's not enough data that for it to kind of know, then it's gonna have some problems. So I would say like I would break it down into um, what are the things that you want to do. So if it's just a back end, just do that first, right?
Yeah.
And then for the scaling part, for scaling it on multiple Docker instances, maybe you can compartmentalize that in a way so that maybe Replit can do it for you. Because if you don't need the LLM to know about the context of the backend, it just has to scale it on Docker, right? And I think Replit can do that pretty well.
Yeah.
But yeah, and then you just so it's a different context for the backend, different context for Docker, and different context for the front end. Right? Yeah.
For simple web apps, it has figured out from design. You can make designs and then
Yeah.
you make the entire app with a user base. For example, super base.
Yeah.
But for niche based things, it's like, yeah, I'm still struggling with some
Yeah.
backend components.
How about like using? Can you use Supabase for it? Because I find a lot of folks are using Supabase.
Yeah, I use Superbase all the time.
Yeah.
So Superbase is good, but again, it cannot run pretty good.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, that's interesting. So I guess just something I also feel like there still needs to be a human in the loop, at least for now, and that's kind of how I think about this. Is it amplifies what you're gonna do, but if you want it to do everything, right, that's it's still not there. I feel so. Yeah. Yeah.
I'm like a seasoned developer. I've been doing this for a long time, but I'm using AI for problem solving and that sort of thing. But I haven't dove into the whole vibe coding kind of thing.
Yeah.
Like I'm an old school Vim type developer, right?
Okay.
So
Yeah.
I don't use the IDEs with Copilot installed and all that kind of stuff. What's your typical workflow for this kind of thing?
Oh yeah, I can share that. Like
Yeah.
I'm also like an old school developer, right? So I don't really vibe code as much as I guess what it usually was supposed to be, right? Like I can maybe want to go back a little bit here. Um, yeah, so vibe coding started when Andrej Karpathy like tweeted about it, right? Wherein he just gives into the vibes. Um, I don't do it that way, honestly. Like I still do it iteratively. I usually start with a template, honestly, and then I just kind of think of what I need to build using that. So that's my process. I can maybe go through Cursor also to start
Yeah, that'd be
showing.
great. Yeah, some people on my team are using Cursor. I haven't tried it yet, but yeah, our company is really pushing the use of AI and everything. So
Yeah,
I want to catch up on it.
I do get that though. Like honestly, I feel everyone should be using AI for coding. The reason I started getting into it was when I saw GPT-3 and asked it a question, and and it did it much better than me. So I had like an existential crisis around that.
Yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, let me share my cursor screen. Oh, and maybe I can. I don't know how I can share this with the stream.
So Cursor is like an ID.
So it's just an ID.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so you have like the agent here that you can chat with on the right, and then just the code. So it's a fork of VS Code.
Mhm.
And then I can show the project I'm working on. I can share this so that you can see it. How do I do this? like this.
Do you use this? No. Oh, yeah.
Okay, there you go.
Copilot.
Yeah, so yes, how do I start? So there are many ways to do vibe coding. There's what I mentioned with what Andrich was doing was you just tell it what you want to do. In my case, I usually start with a template. This template, like I've been working on for quite a while. Um, so there's a, so I can show you this one. So it's essentially like a little template with socket.io, so you can play multiplayer. Um, so this whole game is vibe coded. Actually, it's not a good example. Let's go back. So yeah, so this whole game, for example, is excuse me, is vibe coded. Um, so it's just an idle game where you just upgrade. It's, yeah, you're just upgrading the bees and they're just harvesting resources.
Yeah.
And but there's a leaderboard up there, so there's already a framework underneath, which is a socket socket framework.
Mhm.
So example is this is I guess a famous game online called agar.io. I don't know if anyone has played this multiplayer game, but it's essentially like, so if you guys join there on that link, or maybe if anyone has a laptop, like this framework is live on nudes.cc, and it's deployed on Render, which is this for people who want to play around with deploying. Also, I find that tools like such as Vercel and Render, they're pretty good ways to get it up online so people can test it. Yeah, so if anyone, maybe someone can join there, like go to nudes.cc and join this cell tag game. If anyone on screen can do it. Let's see if it works, right? There, yeah, there. Should be a minimap somewhere. It's not appearing on my screen. But the idea with this game is, yeah, you collect these dots. Oh, there you go. And if you're bigger than the other players, then you can eat them. You can become bigger, right? So that's essentially it. We're just trying to chase each other. So this whole thing was vibe coded by in one shot by the LLM. But before it could do that, I made some framework code for it to be able to do it. So I can share the cursor screen again. Oh, so this is one thing. Like in Cursor, there's a file called cursor rules. So you just, it's kind of just like the system prompt. And what some people do is they actually define there the parameters. For example, build this game on Phaser, use Supabase for the back end, and then yeah, and then whatever. And then it's gonna try and do that for you. But yeah, but as I said, like 10% of the time it makes mistakes, so you still have to check it. Yeah. Oh, I can't see my whole screen. Sorry, let me just do this. There, so it's an example of the cursor rules.
Great.
Excuse me. Yes, actually, um, I think this was actually like the system prompt of V0.dev. If you guys know V0.dev, it's a front end. It's a it's an AI front end maker made by the Vercel folks, and I think they're like some people are saying this is the actual system prompt that they use to do that. So I just copied that. Yeah. So you find that a lot of um, AI coding also is mostly just thinking of prompts like this. So when I heard of prompt engineering as a term, like I rolled my eyes back then, right? Because anyone could just think of that. But I think that is actually what you kind of need to be doing is figuring out how to prompt it properly. Um, so yeah, so that's one thing. Start with a good system prompt, and then start with a good template, and then just iterate and iterate on it because yeah, sometimes it's gonna give you chunk code, and sometimes it thinks it knows what's correct, especially when you're trying to make new code, right? It doesn't really have context yet, but it thinks it knows. So you're gonna have to like really debug it properly. And yeah, I hope that's been useful. Like any other yeah, like
Have you had success with procedural generation with vibe coding?
oh
Because you gave an example of the roguelike in ETH also,
yeah.
and that'd probably be procedural generated.
Yeah, like let me try and think. Like like I can't think of something I made recently, but I showed the Gemini Pro upgrade earlier. Were you able to see that? Let me go back. But yeah, I think Gemini 2.5 Pro, the latest one, can do it pretty well. Because the example I showed was, gosh, oh, what's happening? Like this one. So yeah, it says transform this image into a code-based representation. And then it made that procedurally generated leaf, right? Is that the
No, I'm thinking more like Diablo 2 or like Path of Exile, where you have like tiles,
oh
and then
like
it'll
level?
procedurally.
Okay, yeah, yeah. One thing about LLMs also is they're bad at math, so that's one thing you
Oh, yeah.
can't really rely on them because a lot of that is like math, right? Like making sure that it's path completable, right? But there are a lot of algorithms around that. Um, and so I would find the algorithm and ask it to implement it.
Yeah, I'm just inspired because I'm sure there's like textbooks on it, and
Yeah.
yeah, like you wouldn't need a lot of assets. It goes back to like it's like it could generate pixels very well, and like you could like with a pixel front end and like a generated like procedurally generated back end for like just content. You don't need much to get started. So
Yeah.
I'm sort of just
No,
inspired.
for sure. Yeah, I think that's how you should be thinking about it, right? Because code is cheap. You can just make it do code before making it look nice. Right? Like in this case, now that I think about it, this is actually like um, if you're trying to make a map around a leaf, right? That's completable. So I guess it can do things like that now. If you wanted to make a dungeon, right? It's maybe we can try 2.5 Pro. This just came out like a few days ago, so maybe it can already. If there aren't any questions, I could go through the stuff I'm working on, maybe just to share. Yeah. Yeah, so I shared this earlier. So I was pretty inspired by some of the NPC Friday presentations, and what I'm working on is yeah. So I shared nude.cc earlier, but the idea here is what if games were like so easy to make, right? Like you can just prompt it to do something. And yeah, and so what I'm working on is, well, this is just one part of it, but now you can kind of see that even if you don't really have the code yet, like you can generate code on the fly. So actually, let me share this tab. This is StreamYard. Okay, yeah, refresh again. So essentially, what I'm working on is a vibe coding game developer agent, and the idea is, yeah, is what would it look like if an agent was able to just make games by itself? And I'm pretty inspired by, I don't know if you guys have seen Claude plays Pokemon or Gemini plays Pokemon, where the LLM is able to finish Pokemon by itself, and people are watching it on Twitch. So I wanted to flip that around, wherein LLM creates Pokemon. So what it looked like if the game developer agent was just making games online. So I'm still working on it, but this is like the initial back end for that. So, because this game in the back end is just a 3D racing game. I just prompted it, so it was able to do that really, really well. Um, and you can choose either OpenAI or Gemini. So this is 2.5 Pro. Actually, maybe we can try the procedural stuff. Um, how can we do that? Like make a dungeon crawler with procedural. Um, let's see if it can do it. Yeah, so right now it's just passing that prompt to Gemini with the system prompt also, which says make everything in HTML so that there's no back end, so it won't break. Because most of the time it'll try to do so many stuff, right? So it'll take a few minutes, I would say. But I find like OpenAI GPT 4.1 and 2.5 Pro actually do a pretty good job of one-shotting it. Like this game, this TT game, it's one shot. Um, although having said that, I feel like that's really not going to be the process. Like I mentioned, iterating on the game is better, right? You start with it with this on just to play around, but then if you want to take it to the 100% where you release that game, then you need to do it. Oop, then you need to do it iteratively. Any questions? Yeah.
So I've been trying a couple of times, but I find that it never does a very complex thing very well in one shot.
Mhm.
So I tried making componentry, one shot componentry.
Yeah.
And putting them together. But
Doesn't do it.
No, it's really hard.
Yeah.
How do you think about that?
Oh, and sometimes also like it erases stuff, right? Like kind of forgets things.
Yeah.
So that's one principle also is always use Git. Just make sure that everything is just you can go back to revisions, right? Um, what LLM were you using? Like Sonnet 3.7?
I've tried a couple of different vibe coding platforms, which don't tell us what's.
Yeah, that's a problem, right? Yeah, good.
When they give me the codes, I can
Yeah.
zip the codes to get into GitHub and try and merge them.
Yeah.
But that's potential to get like.
No, yeah. It's probably like that happens when there's like too much context also. Like it
Yeah.
kind of hallucinates because it doesn't know. It's just saying it knows what to do, but it really doesn't.
Mhm.
Although I find like these latest models, as I mentioned, 2.5 Pro and GPT 4.1, they have huge context. So maybe you can try using them if you can. What tool were you using? Or
What's that?
what tool were you using to
The
vibe code?
last one I used was Base 44. It's a new one. that's
Oh,
coming out.
I don't know that. Who made it? Sorry.
Base 44.
Yeah.
It's their own thing.
And it's code generation, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
They're trying to make it so you don't have to connect it to Git or anything.
Oh.
They provide background, all the integrations. They
Yeah.
try and make it.
Yeah, honestly, I feel like a lot of the tools are wrappers around the frontier models. Right? I feel like it's better to just use 4.1 and Gemini and maybe Claude. That's why I like Cursor also, because I know which LLM it's using,
Yeah.
and you can use the API key that you want. Right. So my sense is maybe because it's using an older model. Yeah, because I think it can do that. Like what some people do also is they make something called LLMs.text on their docs. For example, Next.js will have something called LLMs.text, and you just pass that text um, to the to the LLM, and it already knows what components you have. So I think it shouldn't be a problem, actually, with components. It's mostly just how you context it. I feel.
Oh, so yeah, that's a good solution. You context with the components you already have,
Yeah,
and I suppose with the database schema, you already have too. Then.
yeah, I think so. Like break it down, right? Because it's like if you try to make it do everything in one prompt, that's when it usually fails. I find. Yeah, yeah. Uh, okay, so let's go back to this one. Oh, there, so make a legend column. It's simple, right? But it's you can complete it. I think. Yeah. Because that leaderboard is fake, by the way. It's because there's no multiplayer happening in this game. Let's see if it can move. Locked. Yeah, it can be a start, right? Like, yeah. All right, yeah. I think that's mostly what I wanted to share. Like, I hope people are excited around vibe coding. As a game developer myself, I've been using it a lot, and I've been really thinking of what it would mean if code is so cheap, right? That you can just push it so fast. And I feel like the way we're making games now has to be reimagined. Like we shouldn't make all these games around attention and just go deep on what makes a game. When games first started out, computer games in general, right? Folks were looking at Dungeons and Dragons, kind of like the template, and so you saw all of these games that started out then, which has led to now. Like if you guys have played Baldur's Gate or um, Cyberpunk, right? That it all started from that idea. So I think now that we have AI, which is a new thing altogether, what would it mean to make games 5 years into the future? Right? So it's better to imagine that way, I feel. Yeah. Right. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.